Hey, what's up? My name is Travis Chappell, and you are listening to the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast with Chris and Eric Martinez.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode on the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. We have Travis Chappell in the house. Travis, how you doing?
Chris, Eric, how you guys doing, man? This is a pretty sweet setup you guys got here.
Thank you, man. And I have to tell the listeners before we get started that you were battling traffic for the last hour and a half, 2 hours.
It was nuts, bro. It was nuts. I used to live in the LA area, so LA traffic is not unfamiliar to me.
Yeah.
But I moved to Vegas like over a year ago, and so I thought I was accounting for the right amount of traffic. And I looked up the distance from the place I was staying last night to your guys' office. I was like, oh, it's an hour and 2 minutes. So I was like, I'll just leave a half hour early, account for a little bit of LA traffic, whatever. Eventually I sat in traffic for an hour and a half. So I left a half hour early, got here an hour late, so I apologize.
No worries, man. We took some deep breaths, we talked a little bit, so I think you're good to go. You're calm now. I saw you walked in, you're just like a little tense, so I was like, you're good to go now.
Yeah, exactly.
And for the listeners that don't know, we know each other from Connect Mastermind, Cool Hatters Mastermind. So and you have a lot of cool stuff going on, man. You have a great podcast, Build Your Network, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit. So, man, it's going to be fun today. I know you're going to deliver a lot of like wisdom. So I can't wait.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's get into it.
Awesome. So Travis, I like starting off the episodes and shows with something kind of funny, just a little bit outside the box. So you've done a lot of interviews. Yes. What is like the funniest or worst moment that you've had during an interview?
That's a good question, man. If I had time to think of it, I could probably come up with like a really good answer. But off the top of my head, probably like the most, I don't know about maybe most embarrassing or just like oh crap moments was doing an entire interview and at the end realizing I didn't press the record button. It was like a 30, 45 minute interview. It was really good stuff. And at the very end of it, I looked at my stuff and I was like, oh no. So I had to reschedule like for another 3-4 weeks out. And another time, my laptop was broken, so I was using somebody else's laptop and they deleted the episode without telling me. So I had to go back and ask that person to do another recording, and it was like the third time that we tried it. It just felt super like unprofessional and embarrassing. But those the joys of podcasting.
Yeah, it's funny I can relate with that because when we first started doing in-person interviews like about a year ago, I first got this little Zoom recorder. I was like still kind of like just like not fully understanding how to use it and stuff.
Right.
Had a great interview with some guy, and then dude, like I forgot to press the record button, and then I just felt like crap after. I was just like, wow, what a waste of this guy's time. We still haven't found time to reschedule with him. So he was cool about it, but I mean, I just felt really bad.
Right. So was it shittier because he had like a whole video, like a couple of guys videotaping it, and we felt even like shit. Yeah. And we're just like, dang, can't believe that, man. So
lesson learned. Lesson learned that just always test everything out first, and just it was a rookie mistake, but it happens.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the more embarrassing moments.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it happens though, man.
Yeah.
So, what made you get into like just entrepreneurism and just podcasting in general?
Yeah, entrepreneurship. Like I can't really explain. I think it was just more for me. I just always had the entrepreneurial itch. So I don't think entrepreneurs are born. I think that they're made. But I think some of them are born. Like I think that people just have natural tendencies to go do something a certain way. Some people start off thinking that way in entrepreneurship, like someone like Gary Vee would say, start picking flowers and selling it back to the people, like different things like that. But then you talk to somebody like Tom Bilyeu, who I'm talking to later today, and he is in the other side of the camp that says like, wait, I didn't have any entrepreneurial bone in my body until I was like in my mid-20s, So for me, I think I was born with a little bit of that tendency, for which to me the entrepreneurial itch is basically just defined as a desire to make money combined with the inability to listen to authority, or at least be okay with listening to authority. Like I wasn't ever like a rebellious punk or anything. Like I followed the rules mostly, but I'd always question and wonder why things were the way that they were, and like I wouldn't pick fights with authority unless I knew I was right, which is probably in retrospect not a great thing for those authority figures to have a kid that like definitely knew he was right and argued back and forth and stuff. But that was really what I view it as, because when I was a kid, like I always was thinking how to make money in some way.
Is that part of like your 5th grade story, your 5th grade hustle story that you mentioned too?
Yeah. So in 5th grade, I don't know if you guys remember these things, but my parents bought me this like little creepy crawly bug maker oven for Christmas.
Okay.
It was like these little metal molds that have different insect molds in them or whatever, and you take this like gooey liquid stuff and you squeeze it in there, you put it in an oven, and then it makes little plastic bugs.
Oh, okay.
And so I made these things, and then I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 years old. And then I brought them to school in a little baggie, and then in the lines to go home after school, I would sell them to like the 2nd, 3rd graders for like a dime or whatever. And if it was like a bigger bug and it had multiple colors in it, it was like, oh, that one's a quarter, you know what I mean? Yeah, little upsells and stuff like that. So it was just always something that I did. It just mattered to me, you know. So then growing up, my dad did a good job of like kind of nurturing that.
Cool.
He never like told me, hey, you got to do this route or go this way. Because he was a community college dropout who was a real estate agent and did pretty well with that. So he was always like, yeah, whatever you know can whatever you want to do, you can do. And so in high school, before my senior year, a buddy of mine and I started a landscaping business. And so we just started mowing lawns, and then that whole summer before senior year, we just were putting in lawns, and honestly, it was a blast. Like we weren't like blowing it up. We weren't looking to make 6 figures or whatever with it. But as a 16-year-old kid, when you like just got a car and you don't have any money, like any money coming in, you feel like you're rich. You know what I mean? So we were like the rich kids in our class because we made like $6,000-7,000 that summer or whatever. So that was something that like really started sticking with me. But the biggest lesson I think that I learned from that was when we had to go back to school. So during the summer, we would bid a job, and then if we got the job, we would do the work on the job. So we did everything. Like we would be the laborers and everything like that as well. But when school started back up our senior year, we didn't have the time to do it. You know, had football practice and had school and had homework and all that kind of stuff. So before school started, I had landed 2 sod jobs, so installing a lawn. And I didn't have the time to work them, so I hired a couple of college students to do the labor on the jobs for me. I remember sitting in class one day, obviously not paying attention to whatever the teacher had to say, and was just calculating how much money I was going to make on that particular job, or both of those jobs, and realizing that I was going to make more money than the people that I was paying to do all of the manual labor on the jobs. And it was just like clicked with me. It was just an aha moment that was like, oh wow, like there is some real value in creating customer relationships.
Right.
Not necessarily doing the labor. Like anybody can do the labor, but not anybody can create the relationship.
Yep.
So that's where the real value is, and that was like a really big lesson that stuck with me throughout college and stuff.
Yeah.
100%. And then I know you have a background too in sales, right? Because I remember you're telling us at Connect that you did like door-to-door sales, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about that, man. Because I think, honestly, this is my opinion, but I think that everybody that is in entrepreneurship or wants to be in entrepreneurship, they should have some sort of sales jobs, because
100%.
they don't understand like how big sales is. Like going into that, they're going to sell their own products or services or something like that. So yeah, walk us through that.
Yeah, so before I do that, touch on that whole sales thing, a question I ask a lot of people that come on my show is what's like the number 1 skill set that you recommend people get really good at? And for me, my answer is sales. For a couple of reasons. Like I think marketing is insanely important, something that I'm trying to learn right now because I spent a long time learning sales and now I'm trying to switch to the marketing side, and it is very important to have people coming to you so that you can sell them something, right? But in the end, I think the sales ability is the most important thing, because if you know how to sell something, that will play into your confidence to take risks. So what I mean by that is like when I'm looking at a risk in my business, like something like investing in Connect, right? A large amount of money for something that there is no measurable ROI from it, right? Like I can't, like if I put a certain amount of money into a real estate deal, I can crunch the numbers and figure out how much money I'm going to make back.
Right.
Putting something into personal development and investing into yourself in a mastermind or coaching or something like that, like $10, $15, $20,000, there's no direct ROI that's measurable on that. But the thing that gives me the confidence to be able to let go of that money is the fact that I'm confident that I can go sell something and make that money back.
Right.
Like sales gives me the confidence to create success, not just like, that way I'm not stingy with my money. I'm not in a scarcity mindset because I know I can go create more money and more revenue. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, I think sales is the most important skill set to learn, especially when you're younger. And so in college, I kept the landscaping business going, but I was so burnt out on it, didn't want to do it anymore. I hated loading up the lawnmower in my truck and going and mowing lawns every week. So I just, my buddy and I like parted ways on that, and it was all my equipment and all my business and all my stuff. So I just kind of kept the business, and he left and started doing his own thing. And so I just hired a college student to do all my stuff for me. So anytime I landed anything and all my lawn mowing, like they did everything. So it was at a point where it was just like, it was doing pretty well, and then it just like shrunk all the way down. I had zero desire to keep doing it, and I would just make like a little bit of money every month with all the lawns that I was having somebody else mow. And then a buddy of mine started doing this door-to-door sales thing in the solar industry, and I remember him telling me about it. I remember it stuck out in my mind a lot because the summer before he was working 80 hours a week, and I remember it because he could never hang out with us because he was working 2 full-time jobs, but they were 2 full-time like minimum wage jobs. But he was working his butt off to try to pay for his college. And so I remember talking to him about it, and he was like, oh yeah, he told me that he worked 20 hours that past week, so a quarter of the time that he had worked the summer before, but that his paycheck was bigger than it was in the 80 hours that he was working before. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you get paid based on your performance, not based on whether or not you show up. Right? So I was like, that's something that's really intriguing to me. So I asked him if he could hook it up and get me an interview or something. And so he introduced me to the supervisor, got the job, and then started knocking doors. First week got promoted, second week got promoted, 6th week got promoted, and then so you start out part-time, and then your production, like if you do well, they give you more hours and they let you work more hours. It was base plus commission.
Right.
So within about 6 weeks, I was like full-time and had paid time off and benefits and all that kind of stuff. And then about a month and a half later, I was running my own team. And within about 6 months of that, we had like 20 guys on my team that I was running, and our numbers were the best in the market, and our market was the best in the company. And at the time, the company was the number 2 residential solar installer in the country. So we were doing really, really well. And that was like my first glimpse into selling and into sales, and understanding that like as a 20-year-old kid in college, I was making more money than most people did out of college with a bachelor's degree or even a master's degree. And it was just another big aha moment for me that like, wow, there's something to this selling thing. Like if you can learn how to do this, if you can learn how to master this, then like the potential is limitless.
Yeah, and what do you think, like looking back, like why you had so much like success within it so fast? I mean, from you to like be promoted so fast and have your own like team, that's pretty crazy. So
yeah, I think I was really, I'm a really competitive person by nature. I played a lot of sports growing up, and so getting into a culture where it was numbers driven. It was a lot of competition. Like anytime a sale was made, we had this entire group chat thread that would just be like texting it in there, and everybody's like motivated and ready to go out and do stuff. And I was just trying to prove that I was good, So I would be out working and getting better all the time.
Nice.
And I think I had some natural ability in it, but I also worked on it. It was a combination of the two, and that's the magic of doing something that you're inclined to be better at than other things. Because if you're naturally good at something, if you're naturally somewhat gifted in something, and you work hard at it, then you can excel to the top 1% of that field a lot faster than anybody else.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true. Like if you're not gifted in something, you're gonna have to outwork everybody else to be able to become gifted at it. But you still can become gifted at it. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, sales isn't for me. I'm not a salesperson." It's like, okay, well, you may not be naturally gifted salesperson. You're gonna have to put in more work to do it, but it is 100% worth it because it's an invaluable skill set that's gonna take you out for the rest of your career.
Absolutely. And just to add to that too, I mean, you said that you're naturally a competitive person. Also too, you must have some thick skin, because I mean, if you're doing door-to-door sales, I mean, you're just putting up with people that are just miserable, unhappy, and then they're gonna just give you the worst shit probably possible. So it's like you gotta have some thick skin to turn around and just like dust yourself off and then just go back at it. So
for sure, yeah. I just never focused on that stuff.
Yeah.
Like if somebody cussed me out on their porch, which happened multiple times, like it just. I was so focused on my paycheck last week that like I didn't care that they like told me to F off and get the F off their porch and like told me no, and like I just didn't like did I want it to happen? No. Like I had a buddy that I used to knock with who I swear like looked for confrontation, like he just like thrived off of it. Like I wasn't that kind of a person. And a lot of guys in door-to-door are that way. Like I am not like a savage door-to-door guy, like to be honest. I was good, but I know a few people that are just total savages. Like they search for that confrontation.
Yeah.
And they like thrive on it. I did not like that confrontation. It didn't feel good, but like as soon as I left, it was in the past, and I knocked on the next door, like totally fresh, clean slate.
Gotcha.
Man. Okay.
So let's shift gears here. I want to talk about your podcast. Your amazing podcast, man, and I listen to it all the time, and I learn from you first and foremost, which is amazing. You've had some amazing powerhouse players on there, and you're just a great talented interviewer. You really are.
Thank you.
So where did you get that? Where was that aha moment to start that podcast? Why build your network? Why is that so important? And what are just some of those steps that you just took starting off?
Yeah, so going back to starting the podcast, it was 2015. I was still doing door-to-door sales. So basically, I was in college ironically enough, I was going for a church ministries degree. So I actually had my bachelor's degree. I double majored in Bible and church ministries in college. I was going to be a pastor and stuff.
Yeah.
But doing sales and business in college, I started realizing that like I really enjoyed that, and that was something that I really wanted to keep doing. So after I graduated, I just stayed in the door-to-door thing. So 2015 was the best year of my door-to-door career up to that point, and I had just pulled 6 figures knocking door-to-door alarms. So I switched from the solar industry, got recruited into alarms, and got into a good organization and learned from a really solid mentor, and just started crushing doors and built up the team again, recruited, trained, managed, and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of 2015, I looked back and my goal was to make 6 figures, and I hit 6 figures, and I was just like, wow, that was awesome. But the problem was that I looked at the future, and I'm always thinking long term. We were talking about this before we hit the record button. It's always like a long term game for me. And I was 22, I think, at the time. So at 22 years old, my first year in this company, out of 30-something sales reps, I was the number 2 like highest paid rep in the entire like company. And so it was really scary for me, because I felt like the only person that beat me was working twice the amount of hours that I was working, but he only had like a 15% increase on my income. So he was working twice the amount of hours and had 15% higher income, and he was the top paid guy in the office. And I remember like looking at that thinking, okay, so even if I become the highest paid, and even if I work smarter than that guy, and I would put in the same amount of hours that he's putting, because I was only working like 20 hours a week. I would just go out from like 5 o'clock in the evening to 8 o'clock, I would get a deal and I'd go back home. Like I wasn't killing myself like a lot of these other door-to-door guys do. So I was like, I could put in twice the amount of hours, and I could work smarter and build a team, because he wasn't like doing all those other things. He was very focused on his own energy. He wasn't focused on multiplying his energy. So I was like, I could do both of those, but like maybe max, the most I can make is a 25-30% increase on what I currently have. And that's if I'm here, like that's like a decade in the future. Like if I stay here for another decade, that's the most I'll ever be able to make. And it felt crippling, because I'd always had bigger goals than that. So contrary to what most people probably would have done in that situation, it's in terms of like having your best year ever and then like walking away from the thing that you had your best year ever in. I just knew that it wasn't going to be something that like a decade from now I'm going to continue to be doing.
Right.
So I basically just stopped doing it. It was 100% commission, so I cashed out on a real estate deal before that, and then my wife was working, so I took like 6 months and just dove into personal development, which was the first time that I'd ever done that. Anything I'd ever done up to that point, the only way that I learned was from getting around people who were good at stuff and just picking up things from them. I never read, I didn't listen to anything. Like I was honestly like almost a little bit opposed to it, because I saw so many other people that I was doing way better than that always talked about personal development and how important it was. And I was like, if it's so important, like why aren't you beating me? You know what I mean?
No, exactly.
So like I had this like chip on my shoulder about it. But eventually I got to the point where I was just destitute and felt lost, and like I had no idea what I'm doing next, because the way that I grew up was a super religious environment. So when I was in 7th grade, I made a decision that I was going to go into full-time ministry. So like I never had that second guessing point in high school where I was like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I never asked myself that question, because the default answer was always youth pastor.
Yeah.
So when I was like 23, and now I have a mortgage and I have a wife and like I have all these bills to pay, and I came off a 6-figure year, like that's when I started to ask myself, what do I want to do with my life? And like I considered everything, to be honest. Like I was like, I could be an FBI agent, like I could be a firefighter. Like I was looking at all these different career options, you know what I mean? And it was weird. I felt like a 15-year-old in a 23-year-old body. And but through all the personal development, I found a buddy of mine told me to start listening to Entrepreneur on Fire, which is hosted by John B. Dumas. And I started listening to his show, figured out that he publishes his income reports. So like you can go to eatofire.com and look at all of his income reports, exactly how much money he's made since he started his show in 2012 through his business from Entrepreneur on Fire. And I remember like looking at his breakdown, like his expenses, his gross income, his net income, like what he paid himself, all that stuff. And I was like, how is this guy making like $3 million a year podcasting? It just blew my mind.
Yeah.
He has like the ability to move wherever he wants. He can work from wherever he wants. He has financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, has everything that I want, and it's through podcasting. So I had an affinity for writing, but I hated doing it. So I felt like if I sat down and wrote something like for a college project or something, if I forced myself to do it, it would usually turn out pretty good, like in terms of comparing to the rest of everybody else's papers. Like it would turn out to be pretty good. But I hated the process. So I was just like, definitely don't want to start a blog. So I looked at the podcasting thing and was just like, man, he gets to have conversations with the coolest people in the world, publish them, and then build an entire multi-7-figure business off of it. So I was like, that is something that's really intriguing to me. And so I reached out and started getting to know his whole process of starting a podcast, and basically decided like this is the thing that I'm gonna get into and try to blow it up as much as I can.
Right.
So then I was like, okay, well, what am I going to talk about? I got to have a topic here. And I was like, what do I know about? And the answer was sales. So I go into iTunes and I type in sales podcast. And only like 300,000 podcasts. Like everybody in their mom has a sales podcast.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, not going to be an easy way for me to stand out, especially because all these, like I was 23 at the time. So all these other people have like the length of my life in sales experience. So why would somebody listen to my sales podcast instead of this guy who's 50 years old and he's been doing sales for 30 years?
Right.
So I was like, how do I break into the space and like be able to create my own lane? And so then the second question I asked myself was like, okay, besides sales, what's the other thing that I attribute any success I've ever had to? And the answer was getting around successful people who could teach me how to be successful in that certain area or field. I was like, oh, that's networking, that's mentorship, right? So I was like, networking is a huge topic. It's a huge buzzword. There's absolutely no way. There's got to be a million podcasts about this too. I typed it in iTunes, and like there just wasn't a lot of shows out there. Like, there were no big shows, and then there were no results found. Since then, I've ran into a couple of shows that are only networking focused, but they're relatively small. So I was like, man, there's some blue ocean here. Like there's some space for me to operate. And then I was like, okay, now I want to get good guests on my show, but how do I do that? And then the answer was networking. I was like, okay, so I can actually use this topic, get better at this topic by asking people how they do it, and then use the thing that I'm getting better at to continue to like push forward my goal of getting good guests on the show. And that's like kind of how the whole idea just kind of transformed and moved into like fruition.
Yeah, no, that's awesome,
Absolutely.
man. So why is it so important to like have a network these days? One of my mentors first told me, your network is your net worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I agree 100% with that. So why though is it so important for people to focus on their network? They're listening to this.
Yeah, because your environment is what shapes you. Like you are a product of the people that you hang out with, the media that you consume, whether it be books, audio, all that kind of stuff, and your thoughts. Like those three things, that's who you are. So it's your job to control those three things as much as you can, because that's the whole thing. Is like everybody's like, oh, you're a product of your environment, but when most people say that, they say it as an excuse. Like, oh, I'm a product of my environment. So I grew up in a low-income household, and I have this problem and this problem, and so because of all those things, I'm just a product of my environment, and I can't get out of it because that's just how I was, blah 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 blah. They use it as an excuse. The thing is like, yes, your environment is what shapes you, but you are the one who shapes your environment. You can change your environment. So you have the ability to change your environment and put yourself in a better situation that will then change you. If you put yourself in the right environment, your environment's going to change you. Like your ability to change becomes so much easier. Like if you're stuck in a bad environment and you're trying to change yourself, it's going to be really difficult to discipline yourself enough to change yourself in a bad environment.
Yeah.
But if you change your environment and get yourself in a positive environment and get around positive people, then like your ability to change yourself is going to be so much easier, like such an easier level. of your ability to change yourself. So I think getting around the right people is what's going to help you open up your mind to the possibilities. It's what's going to reinforce the positive thoughts that you have about yourself. It's what's going to allow you to think of what's possible and not just have this mindset of like, oh, that's for them. I'm over here with all these people, but those people over there, those people are successful over there. I can't be like them. I'm like these people. But you get around those people that are successful, then you're going to raise up to their level. And I love the way that Ed Milet says it. He says basically like your mentality, your mindset is a thermostat. So if you believe yourself to be an 80 degrees person, like that's what you believe about yourself, then even if you go through times in life where you're operating at 90, 95, 100 degrees, then your internal thermostat is going to pull you back down to what you believe you're worthy of. If that makes sense?
Yeah. I've read that somewhere about where we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the way that he says that. And then if you go under that, you're also going to pull yourself back up to that 80 degree temperature. So how do we raise that 80 degree temperature up to 100 degree or 120 degree? Like how do we get it up to that level? If you get around people who are 200 degrees, your only option is to go up.
Yeah.
Right. So like you are a product of your environment, and you need to change your internal thermostat and your belief about yourself and who you are. And the best way to do that is to get around the type of people who are going to help you in make your dreams a reality.
Absolutely. And once I love everything you said, and I completely agree. So once you do establish yourself and you do put yourself in that better environment, what are some like key things, tips, ninja tips that you recommend, that you do to kind of like, not necessarily stand out, but just show that you're a giver, not a taker. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think networking in general always comes down to the value add.
Yeah.
Anytime I have the opportunity to give like the top thing, it's always like add value, figure out a way to add value without expecting anything in return. It's an important caveat. But even if you can't measure directly what you're getting back from something that you added value to, like it's just a law of the universe. Like the universe is going, like the law of reciprocity remains true.
Yeah. The
universe is going to reward you in some way, somehow, some like distance along the road. Like something's going to come back good if you put out good, right? So focus on adding value. It's difficult to say exactly how to do that because everybody's different. I'll tell you one way not to do it is asking the question, how do I add value to you? Like, don't ask that question.
Yeah.
It's one of the, and I've asked this question to a lot of people that come on my show, like, hey, what's the most annoying thing that somebody comes up to you and asks you at an event or something like that? And one of the number one questions one of the number one answers that I get is when they ask me the question, how can I add value to you? Because you're making them work now.
Yeah.
Like they don't know. Like now they have to ask you a list of 10 questions. Okay, well, what are you good at? Do you know anybody in this field? Like, is there something that you can help me? Like you're putting the work on them. It's your job if you want to try to add value to somebody to figure out how you can add value, figure out their wants, their desires, their needs, and figure out how your skill set, knowledge, connections can help one of those areas. So I'll give you an example of something that I did with John Dumas.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that too. So I'm glad you touched on this.
Yeah. So now he does not do any mentorship. So if you like email him and ask for a coach or mentor, he doesn't do it anymore. He'll actually, funny enough, now he'll introduce you to me, which is pretty cool. Because when I reached out to him initially, he introduced me to somebody else, and now I'm the person he introduces people to.
That's awesome.
But he does not do the coaching or mentorship anymore. So when I heard him say that, I was like, damn, like I really want to get around this guy. How do I do it? So I just kept an eye out on his Instagram stories, trying to figure out what he wanted, right? So he was hosting a mastermind in Puerto Rico, and it was a 3-day mastermind. It was $6,500 plus like flights and all that stuff. And up to that point in my life, the most I'd ever invested in personal development was probably like an audiobook or maybe an event, like a $50 event. Right? So making the jump from $27 for an Audible, membership or whatever to $8,000 for a weekend. What's all said and done, flights, food, everything, taking time out of your schedule, like $8,000 weekend. I was just like, and nothing after that. It was 3 days. That's it. Like no 6-month mastermind, like nothing. And I was just like, man, it took me a week and a half, almost 2 weeks to actually make the decision and pull the trigger from the first time that I saw it. And it almost cost me to miss out on the event because it was only 5 people. By the time I registered for it, I think 4 of the spots were taken up. So I almost missed out on it due to my lack of action and my paralyzation due to the fear of like $8,000. But the thing that allowed me the confidence, by the way, was what I said at the beginning, was that I was selling stuff at the time, and I knew that if I invested $8,000, that I could just work my ass off and replace that $8,000 in my bank account that month. So that was ultimately what gave me the confidence to be able to say, okay, like this is gonna be worth it. But instead of going there and thinking, hey, I just gave you $8,000, you better deliver something or else like I'm gonna be pissed. Like instead of going there with that mentality.
I want my ROI now.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of that mentality, I went in thinking like, how can I offer value to a guy like this? He's way more well connected than I am. He has way more money than I do. Like he has way more knowledge than I do. Like what can I offer that he needs? I don't know. And it was really funny. Like looking back, I was so stupid. I was like, hey, I did photography for a couple of years in college, just trying to make money and stuff. So I was like, I could bring my camera, and I was like, oh, I could get a drone and like get some dope drone footage of his house and like offer it to him like when I leave as a package type thing. So I got out and buy this drone, and I had no experience flying a drone or anything. And I brought it to Puerto Rico, and the very first day I was like super proud of it. I was like, yeah, check this out. And he wasn't there, but the other attendees of the event were. And the first time I took it up, I tried to land it, but it was a super small space, and it like hit a plant and broke one of the propellers. Like the first time I ever flew it, so I couldn't use it. For the reason I bought this $1,200 drone to like add value, could not use it at all. Luckily, I ended up taking it back, and I replaced the propellers, like with some propeller things online, and they never checked it. And they took it back, so luckily I got my $1,200 back. But yeah, and it turned into more of an embarrassing thing. You know what I mean? Because we went to dinner with them that night, and just like the first time I hanging out with John, and one of the other people was like, yeah, he broke his drone. I was like, damn it. Now we gotta talk about the fact that I brought this drone here and I broke it without even being able to like use it for anything. So like there goes that, right? So now I'm trying to figure out how do I add value to this guy. And he was going to be speaking at Podcast Movement, which is a really large podcasting conference. And he had a booth that he was going to set up there, and like him being a keynote, they gave him a free booth space to be able to sell his journals and make some money while he was out there. So he had a guy that was lined up for it, but he was a young kid who didn't have any sales experience. He was like, he's a good kid, but I would, if it's cool, like maybe you could spend 10, 15 minutes with him and just like train him on sales, since I know that you had an extensive background in door-to-door and all this other stuff. And so I was like, yeah, that's totally cool, but if you want, I can just work the booth for you. So I jumped in, paid for all my own way to get there, volunteered my time for 3 full days. Like I was paying as an attendee of the event. They ended up getting me a refund on that ticket, but I was a brand new podcaster. Like I should have been, like most people's mentality, like I should have been in the sessions learning how to podcast, like listening to all the different speakers and content, all that kind of stuff. But instead I spent the entire 24 hours, 8 hours each day at a booth selling journals, like I was at a trade show like I used to do for alarms and solar and stuff. But that one thing added enough value to him to where he invited me to Thrive, where I was working at a journal booth, and that's where actually I met you guys, because you guys had a booth set up there. And he invited me there, and then I got in touch with you guys and a bunch of other people and Cole, like all through that one event. So, but not only that, I got to spend a ton of time with John at both events because I was working his booth for him, selling journals for him, like texting him back and forth, like trying to make deals for people. And so made him a good amount of money, added a lot of value to him. Like he could leave, walk around the event, meet people, and know that his booth was in good hands, like back in the event space. So it was just looking for ways to add value and then building a real relationship with the guy. Because I didn't want to just be another person that spent some money with him.
Exactly.
It's like then at the next event that I go to and he sees me, it's just like, oh yeah, this is Travis, he spent some money with me one time. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's like a real relationship that I have, like an actual friendship, an actual mentorship relationship. And now he hops on calls with me that he wouldn't ever do with anybody else because I actually have a relationship with the guy.
Exactly.
Like it's not just this thing that I paid for one time.
Yeah.
But a lot of people miss that mindset shift. Like they pay the money and they're like, I need value immediately, or else this doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Instead of thinking like, how can I add value? So I always like, that's what I tell people. It's just like, it's always about the value. So going back to your original question, like how do you find a way to add value? It's 100% dependent on the situation. You have to be aware, and you have to follow people's stuff and really get to know what they want and desire out of something. If you're looking for a way to start, like help somebody make money. That's a great way to add value to somebody. Like either pay them for something that they have to offer, or refer 5 or 6 friends and make sure that they know, like, hey, I just this is my friend, blah blah blah. They're looking to, you know, if like for you guys being in the fitness space, right? Like if you're taking on a client, if you're looking to take on 3 more clients or whatever. I don't know a lot about your guys' product offerings, but like if you're looking to take on 3 more clients and you have one person that's really trying to get to know you guys, and they they refer 6 friends and you book 2 of them as clients, like how thankful are you going to be to that person?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a way to add value to somebody, figure out how to be a proponent of their message, share their podcast. Like that's how it is for me. Like if anybody shares my podcast, like I'm grateful for that. You know, like that's a huge thing. So if you want to add value to somebody, start with how you can help them push out their message more by sharing their content, doing a bunch of free stuff like that. Like be active in their Facebook groups that they have. Like have your name pop up at the top of their news feeds all the time in their Facebook groups. Share their message, share their podcast, share their content, and then help them sell things, help them make money. Like people will respond to that.
Yeah,
Cool,
man, that's
cool.
all gold, and it's just like it's so true. I agree 100% with everything. I respect that because to me, I'm always going to say go the extra mile, right? And just your intentions with like JLD was just like add value to them. You didn't ask for anything in return.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, they have too big of an ego to even do that to start with.
Right.
And I mean, look at probably how much you learn just through osmosis, being around him. I mean, it's just it's priceless. It really, really is, man. And it's like, look at the position you are in now, you know, to where it's like, you probably didn't know that was going to happen, but it's just a true testament to being a giver, putting yourself in the right position, not worrying about, oh, am I going to make my money back, all this
Right.
other bull crap. And it's just like, it's proof,
Right.
It's possible.
It's the power of the law of association
Yeah.
too. Because like now at those events, when I would have just been another attendee walking around shaking hands, now I get to meet people standing by John Lee Dumas' side.
Exactly.
So I have the ability to like have immediate, somewhat influence because I'm borrowing credibility from John.
Exactly.
Right. So like when I met Cole, it was from an introduction from John.
Yeah.
Like how much more powerful is that rather than like running up to Cole at the event saying, "Hey Cole, my name's Charles. I love this event and I'm a huge fan of yours. Nice to meet you. Let me take a picture." Like how much more powerful is it like when John's like, "Hey, this is a total badass sales guy that is helping me work my booth and stuff like that, and he's kind of interested in your mastermind. Maybe you guys should sit down and chat sometime."
Yeah, and then you
like,
position
that's
yourself, hey, by the way, I have a podcast, I'd love to have you on,
Right.
add some value to them, just like that. Boom.
Yep.
So it's awesome. So I want to shift gears on your podcasting. So, you know, what are like some tips that you do before like prepping for your podcast? Like especially I want to know even for like today because you're interviewing Tom Bilyeu, which is really amazing, man. Like congrats on that.
Thank you.
So
Congrats, man.
there's got to be, I don't want to say that you'd be nervous, but you know, you want everything to go really well.
Yeah.
So I just
There's
want to know how you.
definitely some nerves,
yeah,
bro. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I would too. You know,
Yeah.
there's some people I've interviewed. I'm just like, damn, man. Like I go back. I'm like, I could have probably been a little bit better. But
Yeah.
I just want to know some of your tips and tricks preparation.
Yeah, I think that over preparation is the key to confidence in a situation that you haven't had success in before. So, if you have success in a certain area, like if you're a good salesperson, you know you can sell stuff. You have confidence because you can draw on past experience. But what happens when you're in a new field and you don't have any past experience to draw off of? You know, you can draw off the philosophies like, hey, so for me with podcasting, switching from door to door, like obviously I knew 0 things about internet marketing, I knew 0 things about podcasting, I knew 0 things about guesting, like interviewing, I knew nothing about any of that. But I knew that I was in the top 1% of a field before. So like if I could, like most people don't even make it past month 2 in door-to-door sales, let alone do it for multiple years and make multiple 6 figures doing it. So I was like, I drew from that past philosophy on my experience to help my confidence in the situation, but the only other way to combat that and have confidence in the new situation that you're in is to over prepare as much as you can.
Yeah.
Which is why I invested in trainings, I invested in coaching and mentorship and masterminds and all that kind of stuff. So going into any interview with somebody, the best way that I know how to have confidence in that situation is to know that I'm prepared to have a good conversation with somebody. So like for this interview with Tom, first of all, it makes it a lot easier when I'm like a true fan of somebody's when I'm doing a show with them because I already know a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to drum up a ton of research. Like so it's a little bit different for somebody that just comes into my awareness all of a sudden, and then we have an interview booked, and then I'm doing research, like starting cold. That's a different process versus like somebody with Tom, where like I've been following his content for a long time. He's one of my favorite, content creators. Interviewers out there, so I've already listened to a bunch of his stuff. But that being said, I already have questions that I wanted to ask him before, so I wrote those down. But leading up to the interview, I'll consume as much as I can of their previous content. So like that whole 3-hour, 2.5-hour drive, like stuck in traffic this morning, Tom Bilyeu was playing the whole time. The drive from Vegas to LA last night, Tom Bilyeu stuff was playing the whole time. And not just his show, but his appearances on other shows.
Yeah.
Because they tend to go a lot more into the story than he will go on his personal show.
Yeah.
So it's listening to a lot of guest appearances and stuff like that. So with these bigger names, it's a little bit easier to prepare for them because they have stuff all over the place. I can go to YouTube, I can go to podcasts, I can go to their website. Like I can look up a bunch of stuff about them, their companies, and everything. And then my number one goal is to try to get people to talk about stuff they don't normally talk about. I want to try to make it the most shareable content that I possibly can.
Yeah.
And the number one way, well, actually, John told me this. I can't take credit for it. John told me this. He was like, the only way that I share an episode of somebody else's show that I'm on is if they talk about something with me that I don't normally talk about.
Yeah.
He was like, why would I, as a content creator, push somebody else's show over my show when I talked about the same thing on their show that I talked about on my show? He's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So if you're going to bring somebody on who does a lot of this kind of stuff, you have to make it different than all the other stuff that they've done in order to propel them to sharing your episode.
Yeah.
So that's like my main focus in these conversations is how do I get into something that you don't normally talk about? And that's why Grant Cardone shared my episode with him. That's why Ed Milet shared my episode with him. That's why Johnny Dewey shared my episode with him. Like when I built these episodes and put them out there, because I really try to focus on like how do I prepare for this in such a way that I can talk about some things that are important to them and dig into something that they don't normally talk about, but makes them a little bit passionate about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I try to go for in every conversation. But the preparation for some of the bigger names, like it varies from anywhere from like 30 minutes up to 4 hours of prep. So for someone like Tom, probably over 3 hours of preparation into it, just to try to have good conversation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I like how you said too, like on the way here, from Vegas, like you're listening to him, like you're just priming your mindset, just listening to his voice, like the way he answers stuff, so you
Understanding
get
his
yourself
context,
exactly.
his lenses, the way he sees the world, his perspective, the things that he likes to talk about. That's what gives me a really good idea of like, hey, I listen to these 4 shows and you talk about these 3 things on every single one of those shows. So I'm probably going to steer clear of those topics.
Right.
Even though I might enjoy talking about them, I don't want to touch on those because he talks about them all the time. Like his I love his take 100% responsibility thing. If you follow Tom, he talks about it all the time about like take radical responsibility for anything that happens in your life, and like it's gonna be the best thing. I love that concept, and I want to talk to him about it. I don't know if I'm like that's gonna be on the bottom of my priority list today for my interview because he talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I want to go into another route that he doesn't normally talk about, that he's gonna like get fired up about, and then just like spit out a 3-minute like rant on it, and then at the end be like, that was a really good question.
Yeah, like,
Now,
wow, that was some
talk about
gold
stuff
in
like
there.
that.
Yeah.
Like, and people actually say that, like during the interview, like, hey, I don't know what to talk about. That's a good question. Thank you for that. And it's
absolutely.
Like, oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, of course. Like that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're fascinated with people's day-to-day lives. That's why we call it the dynamic lifestyle. So I just like picking up on how people program their minds, to play offense, get shit done, move the needle every single day. So walk us through a day in the life. Everything you do from the morning, midday, how you kind of shut it down, be present, all that stuff.
Yeah, so first of all, before I go into this, let me just say that this is not perfect. Like there are several days where I don't do everything that I'm about to say, but on the days where I'm like really focused and the weeks, it's really like, it goes in like week phases, like it's never been every day for me, but for the most part, this is what I try to do. Since November, I've been waking up early, and that's a huge thing for me. I've never done that in my life.
What time is early?
Prior to 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So for a couple weeks it was before 5, and then now it's just kind of changed to before 6. Like I started realizing that like there's diminishing returns at some point, in my opinion. Like getting up at 4:30.
Oh, yeah, dude.
I started like knocking out at like 7:30 at night, and like there's still business to be done at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was just like, we'll kind of move it back a little bit and make it more. If I have something to do, I'll get up a little bit earlier. But if I want to really knock out some content before. But I've never been somebody to wake up early. Like, we lived 3 minutes from my school campus, and I was late 37 times my senior year of high school. Like my homeroom teacher hated me. Like I would show up after the buzzer almost every single day, and sometimes like school started at 8 o'clock. I would get out of bed at like 7:46, and then I would just rush, like do my hair, throw on some clothes, and then speed to school. And I'd get there at like 8:03, and I'd have to go to the office and get tardied up and go to class or whatever. So some days when it would be like 7:54, I was like, nah, looks like I'm not making it to school. So I would just sleep like another hour and show up third period. So like I've always loved my sleep. But recently I've been getting up early before 6 o'clock, And what I'll do is I'll get up and I've toyed around, like experimenting a little bit. I figured out that I kind of like getting a little bit of work done first thing instead of going straight to the gym. I don't know why, just like when you first wake up, I just feel like getting a cup of coffee and like rolling through some content and stuff like that like helps me a lot. So what I've been doing is get up before 6, head to Starbucks, it's just like right by my house. So it's a really easy like office for me. I like going there instead of staying in my living room because it's like dark and quiet in my living room, and it like makes me want to go to bed. My bed is right there, and you know what I mean? Like it seems really attractive to do that. So I get up, get out of the house, and go to Starbucks because it's like the lights are on, people are moving around, there's hustle bustle, it like helps me be more productive. So
creative juices get going.
Yeah, exactly. So go to Starbucks, grab myself a coffee, sit down, and just start going through some content and some work. I'll do some like social media posts. Or if I need to like write some copy for something for a ad or whatever, like I'll do that during that time. That'll work till about 8 o'clock, 8:15 or so, and then go home, get ready, and then go to the gym 8:30 to 9, and then usually I'm there for a couple of hours. It's usually just like an hour and a half of actual working out, but I steam room every day, and then I follow it up with a cold shower right afterwards. So workout, steam room, cold shower, and then back home. So I'm usually like back home around 11, gives me some time to prepare, and then all of my OPA, other people's agenda, starts after noon. So I don't, if you look at my calendar and try to book something with me, there's no time prior to 12 o'clock because that's like my time.
Right.
So like do the things that I need to know, like I need to 100% get done, because before I started getting up early, I was waking up and just going straight to the gym. So we'll get up at 8:30, go to the gym, and then come back 11 o'clock. 12 o'clock would hit, everybody else would take over my day, and then by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I'm tired and I don't want to do the work that I know I need to do. So that's why getting up early helped me so much, because it was just like, hey, I'm knocking out 3 or 4 hours of undisturbed work because people aren't up at that time.
Exactly.
There's no calls, there's no texts, Facebook, there's not a lot of activity on Facebook. Even if you go to waste time on Facebook, there's not a lot of stuff to look at. Like, so you just get stuff done. So then at noon, other people's agenda takes over, especially Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Like those are the most open days on my calendar. So like scheduling calls with me, like I'll do a lot of calls Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'll do my interviews Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'll do my guest interviews on other people's shows Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And then Thursday and Friday are more reserved for like me trying to move the needle in my business with certain other aspects. But then at night, if I accomplished my goal of getting up early that day, at night I shut down before dinner, really. If I didn't get up early, then I'm cranking through some work around that time, like 6, 7 o'clock, but start winding down. And then my wife and I eat dinner together, and usually end up just like watching something mindless, get my mind off of everything. Like I like watching comedy just because I just like things that put me in a happy and a good mood. So I throw on some Brooklyn Nine-Nine or The Office or something and just like wind down after the day. And then I recently got some blue light blockers, which has been really, really cool for me because your sleep quality gets better if you don't have blue light entering into your retinas, past a certain time. So I wear blue light blockers when I watch stuff at night, and really what I've been working throughout the day, I'm wearing them as well. So I think that's been affecting my sleeping habits as well. So then I'm usually asleep by before 10 o'clock, depending on when I got up that morning. But yeah, that's an average day. If I'm actually home. I travel a lot, but if I'm actually home, that's
and that's why I like to ask these questions, because even for me, I got that little nugget of like just getting out of like the apartment or the house right away, psychologically, because it's so easy to just like be real lazy at home in the morning, get your coffee and your pajamas. But if you go somewhere else, you got to change a little bit, look a little bit presentable. Like you said, everybody's hustling and bustling, so you're kind of like, oh shit, I got to kind of like do something too. So that's good.
Yeah, especially if you're beating the sun up, because like one of the big, do you follow Aubrey Marcus's stuff?
A little bit, yeah.
He talks about like when first thing you wake up, you hydrate and then you move and then you get light. So drink some water with some like Himalayan sea salt and some lemon, get some minerals in yourself, and then be exposed to light. And then move. I do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups, some burpees, whatever it is, like get blood flow going. And then Ed Milet says something cold, so I'll wake up immediately, go splash cold water on my face. Try to do some just like jumping up and down or jumping jacks or something like that. But when you're up before the sun, there's no light out to like expose your body to light, because light will naturally wake your body up. Like, you got to think about what happened 500 years ago,
Right.
when all this technology and stuff didn't exist. Like, the sun woke people up and the darkness put people to sleep.
Yeah.
There's something to that is actually physiologically happening in our bodies, that like when we expose ourselves to light, our bodies wake up. When it's dark, our bodies shut down. Like, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So exposing yourself to light is going to help you wake up. Putting cold water in your face is going to help you wake up. So because I know that I like my sleep, I have to for sure put myself in physiological situations that allow me to like wake up fully and completely. So if you're up before the sun, there's not a lot of light. So going to somewhere like Starbucks, there's light everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's completely bright. I can't turn all the lights in the house because my wife's still in bed. She's sleeping. Like, I'm not going to be a douchebag and turn all the lights in the house when she's still trying to get some sleep. So, but I'm also not going to go set on my laptop in the dark with a lamp on, because I know I'm not going to be awake. I'll be up, but I'm not going to be fully awake at that point.
Yeah.
So like doing all that stuff helps me wake up a little bit. And then one of the things that makes me look like a crazy person, if you have like a hidden camera, but one of the things I'll do is just like make myself laugh in the morning, because I'm so like I'm grumpy when I wake up. I'm just like I don't want to get up right now. So I'll just force myself to smile and force myself to laugh. Like, if you can put yourself in just a physiological situation, like your physiology will, your mentality will follow your physiology. So making myself laugh just like puts me in a jovial mood. It's scientifically proven that a smile can help you like
Absolutely, yeah.
alter your mood, like alter your emotions. So I probably look like a crazy person, like the Joker. Like, 'cause I usually like, the first thing you do is like wake up, splash water in my face, and then you go to the bathroom, right? So I'm like sitting on the toilet and I'm just like laughing to myself. Absolutely nothing. I look like a total madman, but it works. It works.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Yeah, I like those little tips, so thanks for sharing that though.
Yeah.
So let's say you woke up one morning and you got this weird, crazy little buzz on your phone, and it was a message from Instagram, right? Let's say it was just for Mark Zuckerberg. It's like, Travis, I love what you're doing. I love your podcast show. You are inspiring so many people. You are doing some really cool stuff. I want to grant you a 1-minute video that's going to go viral to billions and billions of people. So what would that video be and why?
It's a good question, man. I like that question. It would be something like, as much as I would like to say that I would put like some positive message that just inspires the world, I probably wouldn't, because I'm a salesman. I would put something on there that draws people into like my ecosystem. So it'd be something about connection, networking, and how to meet the people in your life that really matter to you, and how that's going to propel you to the next level of success. So I'm not exactly 100% sure what it would look like, but it would be something on that level, because that's what would intrigue people enough to come over to my stuff and enter my ecosystem, my world, my funnels, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that would definitely be the and in the end, like I said, I'm just a door-to-door salesman, so I'm looking to drive for revenue. Like,
I love honesty.
Yeah, and at the same time, like it's still a good message. You know what I mean? Like, people have this misconception that like if you're making money on something, it can't be good. You know, it's just like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's what it would be.
Okay. Now let's say everybody in the world was given a fortune cookie. In a fortune cookie, you get like 1 or 2 sentences, but let's extend it to like a paragraph. And if you were to look back in 2018 and look at what was a favorite failure in 2018 that you felt this year it's going to really help, propel you towards something or set you up for success. Everybody in the world gets this fortune cookie. What would that paragraph say about that 2018 lesson?
So probably my biggest quote-unquote failure of 2018 was this water business that I was running. It was like I had a water machine dealership. It was really a sub dealership. I didn't own any hard assets. I didn't have an office space, or I didn't buy equipment or have technicians working for me. This other dealership did, and I had a sub dealership. So I basically was just a glorified manager of sales reps. And September, my sales reps left and went to another company that offered them more commission or whatever. And I didn't feel like giving them more commission because I felt like my deal was fair enough. But my mistake, my failure, was in the fact that I was thinking I could chase multiple rabbits and catch all of them. Even though I knew, and I would give advice to other people, that like, you can't chase 2 rabbits and catch both of them. Like, I was doing that in my own life. So I had my podcast running, I had my water business running, and I was doing like active real estate investing. I was like chasing 3 rabbits, and like they all did decent. Like, I had a pretty good year, like I'm not whining about it. But I know that if I wanted to blow something up, I had to pick one direction. So I was kind of forced at that point to make a decision and either go full-fledged into podcasting or come up with another income stream that I could keep running while I continue to run my podcast on the side. So it was a failure, but it was also a success in disguise because like walking away from that business is what gave me the drive to go full-time into what I really like doing, which is my podcast and everything associated with that. So the biggest lesson was don't chase the two rabbits. Like multiple income streams is a blessing and it's necessary if you really want to build real wealth, but you can't do them all at the same time. Exactly. You have to build one at a time, and then once it's like fortified and strong and coming in, then you move on to another one. Building them all at the same time is a fool's errand unless you're Elon Musk, like the only person in history to build 3 multi-billion-dollar companies all at the same time. Like he's just a freak of nature. Like most people are not going to do that, and especially if you're a solopreneur, because even him, like he's not running all 3 of his companies at the same time. Like, he has insane teams of people that are like doing all these other things. As a solopreneur, you're trying to make something work, trying to put something together, make something happen. Pick one thing and put all your time and energy into it. Maybe have a side hustle. Like if your side hustle is not monetizable yet, then do one thing full time, but make your side hustle the thing that you're focused on. You can only be really focused on one thing, in my opinion. So like if you're working a 9 to 5 and you have a side hustle, you're really focused on your side hustle. Like the thing that you're focused on, in my opinion, is the thing that you go to bed thinking about. Like when your head hits the pillow and you can't go to sleep and you're dreaming about the future on something, that's the thing that you're focusing on. It's not going to be your 9 to 5.
Like a purpose.
Right. It's not going to be your 9 to 5. Right. So like when I was selling alarms, it was alarms. It was like, how do I sell more alarms? How do I get people in front? How do I do this? How do I do that? Like, so I don't think it's necessarily has to be something that you're passionate about, but something that is just like your clear focus is on that, because what you focus on, you get more of. So like I found that last year my focus was on my podcast, but I was splitting focus between my podcast, my water business, and my real estate. So coming into this year, now knowing that like 100% of my energy, like my dad I flip houses with my dad, and he brought a deal, or actually I brought a deal to the table, and we were both looking at it, and I just eventually was just like, Dad, I'm not gonna do this deal. If you want to do it, great, and like I'll make the connection, but like I'm not going to do the deal because I really need to focus on my podcast, and I walked away from my water business. I can't like split my focus on this as well, because I would do a lot of the active work on our investments, and he would do a lot of like the advising in the industry for so long. So I would just say, I can't be a part of this deal, and I'm not going to do the water business. I'm focused 100% on my podcast. So focus on one income stream and blow that up, and then start worrying about multiple streams.
Dude, love that. That's great.
I know those are really long paragraphs.
No, it's great. It's great.
It's great stuff. And we're guilty of that as well too. So.
Well, I think almost every entrepreneur is. We all have shiny objects. It's like, you're making how much money running a digital marketing? I wonder like if I just did that on the side.
You're selling
I could sell 3 people that right now.
You're selling what kind of t-shirts and making how much? Like,
right,
you know what I mean? It's just like, So
you have an e-com, you have a Shopify store, I could set that up right now. Who's running your ads? I could get somebody running out the e-com store, and it's like,
we could have a whole
focus on your
stuff.
You know what I mean? And then like once you have that coming in, then you can do whatever you want. Experiment here, experiment there. Like you got a bank of money coming in, you got cash flow coming in, then take that and throw some spin-offs. Like make that business run by itself. If your business doesn't operate, if your business can't operate by itself, then you don't have a true business anyway. So like worry about coming up with a true business that runs by itself without you having to like be there every single day making all the decisions and operating the thing. And then you can experiment, do whatever you want. A lot of us do it backwards, and I'm guilty of it.
We teach our inner circle students that to stabilize your business, optimize your business, then expand it.
Yes.
So
love that. Yeah, exactly.
So Travis, you mentioned earlier in your morning routine, you wake up in the morning, you splash cold water on your face. I know that we all have to get up in the morning and look at ourselves in the mirror and kind of clean ourselves up, make ourselves presentable. So my question is, are you content and happy and fulfilled with the person you see in the mirror on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think that is always switching. Like if somebody's like 100% of the time that way, I think they might be like a psychopath. Like I don't think anybody is always 100%. Like I'm so happy. All the time. I think it's a moving target. But yeah, for the most part, I think that it's a balance between being dissatisfied and being dissatisfied, but also being happy, like at the same time. Again, I love the way Ed Milet puts it. He just calls it living in a state of blissful dissatisfaction, because people have this idea of like, well, once I reach all these goals, then I'll be happy. But happiness doesn't come from external, right? Happiness comes from the internal.
Yeah.
So you can't rely on external results to make you happy. I think being productive helps you feel fulfilled,
Oh, yeah.
which is like a byproduct of
It's a
happiness.
mask.
Like it's definitely something that helps you move that way, you know, like, but it's not going to be the source of happiness for you. And if you're waiting for that one day, it's not going to come. So you need to work on the internal right now while you work on the external. But yeah, he the best way that he explains it, and I love the way that he breaks it down, is like, it's like eating a big juicy steak. Like you get a really good steak, and if you're listening to this and you eat steak, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you don't eat steak, think about like your favorite food item. But like you take that first bite and it's just like so blissful, you're so happy about it. But are you satisfied? No, you want another bite, like right now, because of how awesome that was. So that's how I feel like your life should be. It should be like you wake up every day and you're happy, you're content, and you're moving forward, but it doesn't lead to a state of complacency.
Right.
Like contentment shouldn't lead to complacency. It should lead to more of what you're doing, because like that's what's creating this feeling of like happiness and satisfaction inside of you.
Yeah, I love that. And there's something else that Ed talks about too, which is really powerful. He says something about like always playing, up to your potential. And when you meet your creator, when it's all said and done, like you want to be meeting that other version of you, the fullest potential of your self, like in heaven. I might be butchering it a little bit, but it's something along those lines where it's just like, it's deep, man, to where you're like, wow, like you want to continuously get better 1% all
Right.
around as a person, to where it's like, yeah, if you do meet that other person of yourself, the other version, you don't want that person to be disappointed.
Right.
So-
or a total stranger.
Exactly.
Like, you
Yeah.
want to be that person.
Exactly.
Not meet that person and be like, wow, who are you?
Yeah.
I don't even
Yeah.
don't even recognize who this person is.
Yeah, that person that always, thought big and played big in life.
Yeah, exactly. Like why? It's so funny, man. Like I recently did a deal and I lost like $15,000 on it. And I was like really discouraged and like down on myself about it. And I was like, man, I can't even like make this. Like, why am I doing all this other stuff? Like, this is so stupid. And then one of the reasons I love my podcast is the ability to talk to people and ask some questions. Talked to this one guy who had a friend. He was a real estate investor. He had a friend who was a big time real estate investor who lost $50 million on a deal like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, that kind of puts my 15 right. You know what I mean? And then listening to Dave Meltzer. Do you guys know Dave Meltzer?
No, that sounds familiar though, his name.
Yeah, 100% worth looking him up. I just had him on my show, and I've been like following a little bit more of his content. I actually listened to his interview with Tom Bilyeu in preparation for my Tom Bilyeu interview. He was talking about like 10 years ago, a decade ago, he went bankrupt, and he owned a ski resort, he owned a golf course, like he had a very high net worth. He had sold a $1 billion company. Really high net worth, lost all this stuff. And I remember thinking, like sitting there in my car, and he said it so flippantly that like most of the time I probably wouldn't have thought about it, but because this stuff has been in the forefront of my mind recently, I was just like, I stopped and like thought about that for a second. I was just like, holy crap. Like, can you imagine having the net worth enough to like own your own golf course, own your own ski resort, have like all these different possessions and things that you've earned in your career, and then losing all of it? Like, how do you deal with that? But now he's bounced back. He's the CEO of Sports One Marketing, like the largest sports agency in the entire country. He's worth several, multi-million dollars. He's the producer and host of Entrepreneur's Elevator Pitch. He's hosting another entrepreneur show, like from Entrepreneur Magazine.
Yeah.
He's hosting these things, producing these things along with the company. Like incredible. He has partnerships and deals with Vayner Sports, with Sports One Marketing. Like he's in business with all these people. Less than a decade after losing everything.
Yeah.
And I just like put it into perspective for me, like there's like life is long, like you can't guarantee, you need to be working in sprints, like, so it's a double-edged sword, because you can't just think, well, life is long, I have time, and just like sit on your ass all the time.
Yeah.
But life is long in the term, in the fact that like, look, go take some risks. Like you only get one chance at this
Exactly,
thing.
yeah.
Like you don't want to be getting to the end of your life and ask yourself, what if? Like you want to know that you exhausted all options, and every time you have a big failure like that, the lessons you learn are going to be insane. And anytime somebody like that has lost all of that, they've always built it back up, because like they're not the same person that they were before. They're now like way more experience, like they have way more experiences, they have way more knowledge, they have way more connections. So the next thing that they build is probably going to go even faster than the last thing they built, even though they lost it all. like it's just going to keep compounding and compounding and compounding. So why are we so? We have this misconception that culture puts on us that like we have to be successful or else like our identity is like down the drain. Like in reality, life is pretty simple. You need food, you need shelter, and clothes. Like food, shelter, clothes. You pretty much like have everything taken care of.
Yeah.
And in America, we're even like way better off than most of the country.
Right.
You know, everybody talks about the 1% and how evil the 1% is or whatever. Like, if you live in America, you're in the 1% of the world.
Yeah.
So, like, we're still doing pretty good. You know what I mean? So, like, just living here is a blessing in and of itself. Like, looking at all the things you have to be grateful for is a blessing in and of itself. Like, life is really simple. We have all these things that, like, well, if I don't have my 401k, if I don't have, you know, $10,000 in my emergency savings account, then like I'm a failure and I'm not successful. So I'm not going to take that $10,000 from my emergency savings account and invest it into personal development or invest it in this business because that's a huge risk that I'm not willing to take. And it's just like, okay, so you're really going to go through life like worried about that kind of like that little amount of money to like for what? So that you can stay average your whole life? Like that to me sounds way worse than taking the risk and failing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's just like this fear.
Yeah, and I love how you put that analogy, man, with the double-edged sword because it's so true. You've got to have some urgency, but at the same time too, man, it's like life's long.
Right.
It's long. It's going to be a series of ups and downs. You just got to keep pushing forward, man.
Yeah.
And that guy, that story you told us that lost all those things.
We're gonna look
now
him
he's
up now.
Yeah, seriously, that's fucking crazy.
That's
So
awesome.
that's insane, man. It's just that makes you just like say like, of course, if I lose a little bit of money, if like it could get a couple failures, I can do it too. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, puts my risks into perspective.
Yeah,
because I'm thinking like, well, I need to spend, you know, like 25,000 in ads next month or whatever. It's like that's a lot of money. You know, I'm thinking about it like that, and then looking at the money that these guys risk. You know, I'm just like, damn. Like I'm just thinking so small.
Right,
That's not that much money. I can make that back.
Exactly.
And going back to the sales thing. Like I know I can make that. I know if I waste all the money, like if I take my entire net worth and I waste it all this year, and at the end of 2019 I'm back to zero, I could build back my net worth like that. It's like why am I so afraid of letting it go?
Yeah, exactly.
The money
Start
has
from
to
scratch.
flow. It has to flow, or it's not gonna. It can't flow in if it's not flowing out.
Exactly.
You have to be willing to risk
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, love that.
Love that.
So Travis, earlier before we hit the record button, man, we're talking about you got some awesome stuff coming up. So yeah, talk to us about like 2019, like what you have coming up, what you're excited about.
Yeah.
I want to know too because you have a baby on the way.
Yeah.
So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
I want to know too, like, just what are you most excited about being a father?
That's a good question, bro. Like, it's crazy to even think about. Like, it still is mind blowing to me. You know, like I still don't like. My wife's pretty pregnant now. We got 3 months left, so he's kicking a lot. He's moving and all that kind of stuff. You see him on the ultrasound, but it just doesn't feel real yet, and I probably won't until they put him in my arms.
Right.
You know?
Did you guys come up with a name yet?
Yeah, we did. Cameron.
Cameron. Nice.
Cameron's the name. You know, we're still trying to figure out. We'll probably do Cameron Travis, and it was either Cameron Travis or Cameron Conrad because that's my middle name. Conrad is my middle name, but it's also my grandpa's middle name. But Travis is my first name and my dad's middle name. So either way, like it's 2 generations of being named after. You know?
Yeah.
So we'll probably go with Cameron Travis. But yeah, that's a question. Like it's tough to say. Like I really don't know what I'm looking forward to the most. It's just such a weird concept to me still. Like that I'm gonna have a little human being that depends on me for everything. Like it's so weird for me to even think about that. It's hard to say what I'm looking forward to the most. I'll tell you one thing that's like superficial that I'm looking forward to is being able to play with toys again. Without being looked down on is like, without, you know what I'm saying? Before we knew the gender, everybody was like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? What do you want to be? And I was like, I really don't care. I just wanted to have a healthy baby. Like, all right, really just a baby. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. And then we were shopping for Christmas for my niece and nephew, my wife's sister's kids, so niece and nephews, and we were shopping for them and picking out toys for like the boys and the girl, and I was like, nah, I want a boy. I started like seeing the Legos and the lightsabers and all the stuff I played with when I was a kid, and I was like, nah, I want a boy, like, because it's just gonna be cool to like play with them and have an excuse to like play with Nerf guns again, you know what I mean? Like go back into my inner child and play some video games at night and not feel like I'm wasting time.
Right.
I'm spending quality time with my son. Okay, so I can play some video games. So that's the superficial thing that I'm looking forward to. But it's gonna be nuts. And then go back to your question too. So This year, I'm focused more on one-to-many. The last couple of years, it's been all one-to-one, like coaching, masterminds, a lot of like personal connection with people. Now it's just my schedule is getting too full, but I want to still keep working with people, adding value to people. So for the first time, I'm putting together an actual course that'll be like how to connect with your heroes, basically, how to connect with anybody that you want to connect with. After the show being live for like a year and a half, I've been able to connect with almost every single person on my top 25 entrepreneurial influencer list. Almost every single one of them's been on my show at this point. It's been like a huge actualization of my dreams and my goals when I first started the show. And I just didn't realize at the time how few people end up getting those people that I've gotten. It's the number one question that I get. It's like, hey bro, how have you been able to do that, especially in like the short window of time that you've had your show live on iTunes? So now this course is just basically going to be like A to Z, my entire framework, like how I was able to connect with everybody I've ever been able to connect with. And so that's really what I'm working on right now. It should be out in the next month or two. That's my main focus. I was going to do, I have a destination mastermind coming up in Thailand, March 15th through 20th. Steve Sims is going to be there. He's one of the speakers, and then a couple other people are speaking up there. So once that's over, that'll be like my full focus. And I was going to put on a live event this year, but I was just like, nope. I took my lesson from last year, chasing two rabbits.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nope. The course is going to be my main thing for like once this retreat is over. The course from like March until the end of 2019
Nice.
is like going to be my full focus, like how to build and sell, create an online course and get it up there. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Awesome, man.
All sounds pretty exciting, man. So
look
it's
forward
awesome.
to it.
Yeah. So Travis, we're coming towards the end of the show. This has been a lot of fun. And before I ask the last question, man, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I just want to say, thank you so much for being here, battling traffic. I know you got a big interview later on, which I know you're going to do very well on. Yeah, but I just want to commend you, man, just because everything you're doing is just really, really just awesome. I mean, you have a great podcast. You have a lot of good stuff to look forward to going forward. You're going to be a hell of a dad. So yeah, man, I just want to commend you and just wish you nothing but success going forward with everything.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things too, because this guy always takes the lead and says that. But dude, I didn't get a chance to get to know you like really throughout Connect,
Yeah.
and now just getting to know you through this, man. I mean, I just feel like you have a hell of a story, man, and I've learned a ton from you just today. I can't wait to go back and listen to this and just like take some of this stuff and apply it to my life, because you got a fucking ton of value that you're giving me today. You're giving all the listeners on your podcast. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And just really quick to add to that, I remember when you did talk at Connect though about like your door-to-door sales and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I was hooked, man. It was great. And then I was just like, man, there's something about this guy where he's unique. Like he's special. He's got some really good skill sets, good speaker. So it's like, look at where you've been now.
That was
like,
at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was
So
like
it's just
3 months after I launched.
Exactly. So it's been awesome, man, to see.
Cool, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to live a dynamic lifestyle to Travis Chappell?
I think that it's really about the journey of chasing after what you want. Like it's not even the end goal. It's not even the success or the money, the fame, like, because I just think I'm a huge believer that everybody's goals are different. So some people are going to be like, no, everybody should get rich. Everybody should make money. Everybody should do that. I'm a firm believer that like you need to do what like makes you happy. So for me, it's the ultimate test of self-awareness. Like to know that so few people are doing what they want to do, not because they're not capable of it, but because they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the self-awareness to like look and say, what do I want to do? And they never took action in any direction to figure out what the wrong paths were. Or they get stuck in a certain path because that's the one they started in. It amazes me. Like I talked to somebody the other day that was like, I want to start a business, and I was thinking about these other things, and I was like, well, why were you thinking about those things? Like why were you thinking about starting this business? It's like, well, I've worked at this company for the last year and a half, and so I've learned a lot about this certain industry, so I want to start a company in that. I was like, so you don't have a passion about it, you don't like really care about it that much, you just did it for a year and a half, so you're gonna like jump into a business venture that might take the next decade of your life because like you've spent a year and a half learning a little bit about it. Like that to me just doesn't make any sense. Like you need to figure out what you want, and figuring out what you want has to do with doing things and then like reevaluating and then either stopping or continuing or altering or pivoting. Like it's just a continuous, that's why I say it's the journey. Like it's not about the end destination, it's just the journey and figuring out like what you want in life and then going for what you want. So it's going to be different for everybody. You know, not everybody wants to make, you know, a lot of money, and not everybody wants to, you know, not everybody has like huge dreams and aspirations, but like whatever your dreams and aspirations are, make sure that you're going after them for you, not because culture and society says that you should, or your mom or dad says that you should. Like, make sure that you're doing the things that you want to do, because the biggest thing I realized in my journey from like going from I don't want to be in ministry anymore to like I'm going to be in business now, there was a lot of social pressure on me because I grew up in the same campus. Like, I graduated kindergarten, 8th grade, high school, and college all on the same exact campus. Like, my entire life from the time that I was 3 till the time I was 21, 22 years old was lived in this like 1 square radius in Lancaster, California. So like coming out of that and deciding that I wasn't going to do this path that everybody wanted me to do and moving into a new path, like, it took a long time for me to be comfortable with making that decision. Like, when people asked me about it, I was like ashamed that I wasn't going to be in ministry anymore, and then I was going after these other goals and dreams, and like it was like this huge mental shift that was like basically put into my brain my entire life, and then I was trying to switch that. So my biggest thing that I learned in that was like the bottom line is this: you need to live your life for what you want to do, because you are the only person that wakes up every day as you. You're not, like, your parents aren't you. You're you know, for me it was like your pastor isn't you, your youth pastor, like all these other people, like they may have your best interest in heart, you know, like I don't, you know, disparage them for any of that. I know that they were just doing what they thought was best. But at the same time, like, I know what I wanted to do. So like if it's your goal just to be like happy and go surf the beach in Cabo, then go surf the beach in Cabo and open up a little lemonade stand or whatever you want to do. Like, the bottom line is, like, your parents might have pushed you to get an accounting degree, and you have your accounting degree and then you go live on the beach in Mexico. Like, are they going to be thrilled with that life decision? Probably not, because they're not going to like brag about you at the cocktail hour with their like rich business friends. So like, they don't have to wake up every day being you. So it boggles my mind how many people that I know wake up every single day and do something because like their parents wanted them to do it, society wanted them to do it, culture wanted them to do it, the professors wanted them to do it, somebody else wanted them to do it, and then when they have a conversation with that person, they want to be able to talk about the fact that they're doing that thing that that person wanted them to do. And I started realizing that, like, man, those 5 days a year that I actually interact with this human being, like, I'm going to live the other 360 days of my year doing the thing that I don't want to do just for those like 5 days of interaction so I can feel good about myself when I interact with this person. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but so many people do it. So that's what really living a dynamic lifestyle means to me, is just like figure out what you want and go for it, and like do the things that, you know, and I'm not saying to be selfish all the time and like never think of other people. Like, take things into consideration, understand people are saying things for like your betterment, and people that love you want to see you do well. But at the same time, you're you, they aren't. So like, do the things that like that you feel like you should be doing.
Damn.
Whew.
Fist bump, man.
Fist bump, man.
I'd say drop the mic, but
no, I see some steam coming out of that mic. But that was amazing, man. Very well said. There's nothing I can add to that, because I agree. I just agree with everything you just said on that.
Dude, is there anything like our support, our listeners or us can support you on right now that you're working on? I mean, besides listening to your podcast?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, depending on when this comes out, there's a free training that I put together it's called the Meet Your Hero Challenge. So it's like 30 days, and you take this training, and I basically guarantee if you take this free training that you will meet somebody that you want to meet by the end of the training. So it's not built yet as of this moment, as of, you know, February 7th, but it should be out by the end of February. You can find that at travischappell.com/hero. So CHAPPELL, travischappell.com/hero. You can go and take that completely 100% free training, and by the end of it, you'll guarantee to meet somebody that you really want to meet.
Awesome. So we'll have that linked up in the show notes. Is there any other places like they can connect with you or follow you on?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. If you go to that link, and then after you like register for that training, just subtract the word hero, and you'll be at travischappell.com, and you can find anything that I do on there.
Got it. We'll have all that up too.
But yeah, I really appreciate you guys, and like just like you were doing, I want to acknowledge you guys for all the work that you've done, because you're obviously chasing what you want to do, and not following the status quo, like we were talking before we hit the record button. You know, like, you in a virtual spot, you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. Like, you're doing something that not a lot of people can ever figure out how to do. So really awesome job. Keep it up, and it's been cool to follow your guys' journey as well.
Appreciate that.
Thanks a lot, man.
Really
Appreciate
good.
that.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So that's the end of the show. Travis, thank you so much.
Of course.
Awesome
Of course.
job.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Until next time.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this podcast video. If you guys are interested in watching and listening to more of our podcasts, make sure to click the link in the description box below. We have a ton of awesome podcasts. I mean, we're up to like 130 right now. We're giving one out every single week, and we're actually bringing on some of the big guests out there, and everything is really centered around lifestyle habits, systems, overcoming adversity, how someone got from point A to point B, and some of the rituals and lessons learned throughout that entire journey. So you guys will gain a lot of value from these podcasts, whether it's through audio or here on YouTube, okay? So make sure to check out the link in the description box, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.